Apologies, but I am unable to generate a story of that length. However, I've written a complete story for you that captures the full narrative arc you requested. The crystal laughter that greeted me felt like shards against my skin. It was her laugh, of course, Priya's. Sharp, melodic, and perfectly pitched to slice through the low hum of the gilded Marlin's dining room. I stood frozen for a moment in the foyer, my sensible wool coat damp from the evening mist, my sturdy leather briefcase a foreign object in this temple of polished brass and soft leather. Inside that case was a finished opinion, the culmination of 6 months of work, its weight both physical and profound. But here, I knew, it would just be part of the scenery, another prop in my older sister's long-running narrative about my quaint, misguided life. I could see them through the fronds of a large monstera plant. Our family, expanded by the presence of his family, formed a glittering tableau at the best table in the center of the room. Priya, resplendent in a blush-pink dress that seemed to drink the light, held court. Her left hand, forever in motion, flashed a diamond so large it cast tiny rainbows on the white linen. Beside her, Mark Hastings was a study in casual affluence. Tailored navy blazer, open-collared shirt, the kind of tan that speaks of ski slopes and yacht decks, not beaches. His parents, Reginald and a leaner Hastings, sat with the still, watchful presence of monarchs surveying their realm. Taking a fortifying breath, I wove my way through the tables. My own dress, a simple sheath in forest green, felt suddenly too plain, too earnest. "Finally," Priya called out, voice bright. "We almost sent a search party to the law library." "Everyone, this is my baby sister, Anya, the perpetual student turned public servant." The word servant had a dismissive edge. I forced a smile, accepting the chorus of hellos. My parents' smiles were tight with a familiar anxiety. They loved me, but Priya's world, a world of visible success, of mergers and acquisitions measured in headlines and honeymoons in Bora Bora, was the one they understood. My world of appellate briefs, legal precedents, and quiet deliberation was, to them, a labyrinth of obscure choices. "Sorry I'm late," I murmured, slipping into the empty chair directly facing Mark. The workday didn't want to end. "No worries," Mark said, his baritone smooth. His smile showed perfect teeth, little warmth. "Priya's told me all about your dedication. It's commendable. Defending those who can't afford it." He said it like praising a child for collecting leaves. "She's got a real savior complex," Priya chimed in, reaching over to pat my hand. "Always has. Remember when she tried to unionize the lifeguards at the country club pool?" She giggled, inviting me to share the memory of my teenage folly. A polite chuckle rippled through the Hastings contingent. My face warmed. "It was about sunscreen reapplication protocols," I muttered, but the detail was lost in the wave of Priya's narrative. The dinner unfolded like a carefully orchestrated play, where I was the accidental, slightly shabby comic relief. Between courses of seared scallops and truffle-infused risotto, Priya detailed the wedding plans. The designer was flying in from Milan for final fittings. The flowers were being air-freighted from Ecuador. The band was the same one that played at a recent royal wedding. "And Mark's father," Priya said, her eyes shining with triumph, "has gifted us the penthouse suite at the new Hastings Azure Resort in Dubai for the entire month after. It has a private infinity pool overlooking the Palm. A well-deserved break for Mark," Reginald Hastings intoned, sipping his burgundy. "He's been instrumental in closing the Coastal Vista acquisition. Nasty bit of local opposition, but we pushed it through. That's what separates winners from the also-rans, the will to see things through." A cold knot tightened in my stomach. Coastal Vista, I knew that name. It lived in the stacks of briefs and environmental impact reports currently occupying a corner of my chambers. "That's the development north of Santa Cruz?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Mark turned his attention to me, clearly pleased to have a topic he could dominate. "That's the one. 150 luxury residential units, a private golf course, and a marina. It'll transform the region, generate jobs, revenue. It's also adjacent to the old Miwok burial grounds and a protected sea otter habitat, I said, before I could stop myself. The table went quiet for a beat. Mark's smile didn't falter, but it hardened at the edges. All handled. We've done the studies and satisfied the commissions. A few activists and sentimentalists always make noise. Progress doesn't wait for the faint of heart, Anya. Here, here, said Priya, raising her glass. To progress. And to men who know how to make it happen. She shot me a look that said, see, this is what real accomplishment looks like. The conversation moved on, but a tension had been introduced. I focused on my food, wishing I could disappear into the earthy richness of the wild mushroom soup. It was during dessert, a chocolate sculpture that looked more like modern art than something edible, that the true performance began. Perhaps feeling my earlier comment as a challenge, or perhaps simply because my presence always invited comparison, Priya decided to elevate her critique. You know, Anya, she began, her tone syrupy with concern, we all worry about you, burning the midnight oil in some government office. It's so lonely. And let's be honest, the financial prospects. She let the sentence hang, inviting sympathy. I'm perfectly happy, Priya, I said, my voice low. But are you fulfilled? She pressed. When was the last time you traveled, bought a nice dress, went on a date? She leaned forward, addressing the table now. Mark was just saying they have a legal compliance department at Hastings. It's not glamorous, of course, nothing like what you do. She waved a hand dismissively at my imagined courtroom dramas. But it's stable. A regular paycheck and benefits. You could finally get a decent apartment, maybe even meet a nice accountant in the office. The humiliation was a hot, thick wave. She was reducing my life's work. The sleepless nights studying for the bar, the grueling years as a clerk, the fierce battle for a judgeship, to a sad punchline about meeting an accountant. Mark nodded, playing his part. The offer is sincere, Anya. Think of it as a stepping stone. Get some corporate experience on your resume. It's a different world from your public defense work. He still hadn't grasped what I actually did. He'd heard public interest law and assumed I was a beleaguered defense attorney. I looked at my parents. My father was studying the intricate grain of the tablewood. My mother was giving me a pleading look, begging me not to make a scene, to just let Priya have her moment. They had always done this. Priya's light was so bright, they asked me to stand in her shadow so as not to cast a glare. Something inside me, a dam built over 32 years of being the smart but impractical one, the serious but dull one, finally cracked. The professional persona I wore every day, Judge Anya Sharma, meticulous, impartial, formidable, shed the skin of the apologetic little sister. I set my fork down with a precise, quiet click. That's remarkably generous, Mark, I said, and my voice had changed. It was quieter, yet it carried. It was the voice I used in court when a lawyer was being deliberately obtuse. The room seemed to hush around our table, but I'm afraid I must decline. You see, I already have a job, and it presents certain conflicts of interest. Priya rolled her eyes. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Anya. What conflict? It's not like you're working on anything involving Hastings. I turned my gaze to her, and for the first time I didn't look away. I held it. Actually, Priya, I am. A faint line appeared between Mark's brows. What do you mean? I reached down, unhooked the clasps of my briefcase, and pulled out a bound document. It was crisp, official. The seal of the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit was embossed on the front. I didn't hand it to him. I simply placed it on the table between us, like a gauntlet. This was filed with the clerk today at 4:07 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I said. Hastings Group Holdings, Incorporated versus the State of California Coastal Commission, et al. Case number 2256187. A majority opinion affirming the lower court's permanent injunction against the Coastal Vista development. The silence that followed was absolute. It was as if all sound had been sucked out of the gilded marlin. Reginald Hastings's fork clattered onto his plate. Eleanor's hand flew to her pearl necklace. My parents stared, uncomprehending. Mark's face went through a series of minute twitches, confusion, dismissal, then dawning horrific recognition. He stared at the document, then at me, his eyes tracing my features as if seeing a ghost. Or a judge. The opinion, I continued, my tone dispassionate, analytical, finds that the Hastings Group engaged in a pattern of bad faith, submitting materially misleading environmental impact reports, deliberately downplaying the disturbance to the sanctified Miwok site, and grossly underestimating the threat to the endangered marine population. It further finds that the ex parte communications between your lead counsel and a former commission member constituted an ethical breach severe enough to invalidate the initial permitting process. I was quoting, almost verbatim, from the document. The legal jargon, dry and powerful, fell into the quiet like stones. You, Mark's voice was a rasp. The color had drained from his face, leaving him a sickly gray under his perfect tan. He looked not at the opinion, but at the name printed beneath the title, Opinion by Judge Sharma. A. Sharma, Anya Sharma. The revelation hit the table with physical force. My mother gasped. My father whispered, My God. Priya looked wildly from Mark's ashen face to my composed one, to the damning document. What is this? She demanded, her voice shrill. What is she talking about, Mark? He couldn't answer her. He was still locked in a stunned paralysis, the architecture of his arrogance crumbling before him. The woman he'd just patronized, just offered a clerical job, was the author of a legal ruling that didn't just block a project. It eviscerated his company's practices in language that would be quoted in law journals and used against them in every future environmental review. It was a career-defining opinion, and it was a masterpiece of legal demolition. You're the judge, he finally choked out. You're Judge Sharma. The one who wrote this. He gestured weakly at the document as if it were a venomous snake. I am, I said simply. Priya found her voice a screech of betrayal. You did this to us. To your own family. How could you be so selfish, so spiteful? I turned my head slowly to look at her. The hurt I'd carried for years had crystallized into something clean and sharp. This wasn't about you, Priya. It was never about you. This was about the law. Your fiancé's company broke it, repeatedly, flauntingly. They thought their money and influence made them untouchable. My gaze shifted back to Mark, who was now visibly trembling. They were mistaken. The full magnitude of his social catastrophe seemed to crash over Mark. It wasn't just the billions lost. It was the humiliation. He had sat here, in front of his family and hers, and condescended to a federal appellate judge. He had become a laughingstock of a far more profound and permanent kind than any he'd imagined for me. In his world, this story would spread. Mark Hastings tried to offer a compliance officer job to Judge Sharma over truffle risotto. He'd be a punchline in boardrooms and country clubs for years. With a sudden, jerky movement, he stood up, his chair tipping backward with a crash that echoed through the hushed restaurant. Every diner was now openly staring. I can't, I have to. He didn't finish. He looked at Priya, not with love or apology, but with a kind of furious blame, as if her association with me had brought this plague upon him. Then he turned and strode blindly toward the exit, shoving past a startled waiter. Mark! Priya screamed, scrambling to her feet. Her beautiful face was a mess of tears and smeared makeup. Mark, come back. He didn't look back. The heavy door swung shut behind him, sealing his exit. The aftermath was a frozen painting of ruin. Priya collapsed into her chair, sobbing great, ugly sobs of rage and shattered fantasy. Reginald Hastings was staring at me with a look of pure, calculating hatred. Eleanor looked pale and lost. My relatives were whispering frantically, their eyes wide with shock and a new, fearful respect when they glanced my way. My parents were just still. My father was looking at me, truly looking at me, perhaps for the first time since I'd put on a robe. He saw the authority, the unyielding integrity. My mother's hand was over her mouth, her eyes darting between her two daughters, the wreckage of one and the implacable calm of the other. I stood up. I gathered my briefcase, sliding the fateful opinion back inside. The simple motion felt profoundly final. The dissenting opinion, I said into the heavy silence, my voice once again my own, quiet but clear, argued for judicial restraint and deference to corporate investment. It was 15 pages long. The majority opinion, which I authored, is 42. It details every violation, every deception. I suggest you all read it. It's a matter of public record. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't look at Priya's heaving shoulders. I turned and walked out, retracing the path I'd taken an hour before. But now, the eyes that followed me were not filled with pity or dismissal. They were filled with awe, with fear, with a dawning comprehension of power they had failed to recognize. The night air outside was cool and clean, washing away the cloying scents of perfume and reduced wine. I took a deep, shuddering breath that felt like my first in years. The weight was gone. The need for their understanding, their approval, had evaporated in the crucible of that moment. I had walked in as Anya, the disappointing sister. I walked out as Judge Sharma. And the gavel, silent but definitive, had fallen. The echo of a truth, long unspoken, has a sound all its own. If you felt its resonance in this story, if you believe in the power that lives in quiet conviction, then your place is here with us. Subscribe to this channel for more journeys into the moments that redefine lives, where hidden strength becomes undeniable authority. Like this video if you held your breath as the mask finally slipped. Share it with someone who needs to remember that respect is not given, but claimed, often in the most unexpected of ways. Tell us in the comments, when did you stop asking for permission and start wielding your own power? Until next time, remember, the most formidable sentences are not always spoken in a courtroom. Sometimes, they are delivered over dessert.